The Silent Arrival. The Crexian Empire had ruled the Orion Arm for 3 centuries. Their crystalline ships carved through space like knives through silk, leaving behind worlds stripped of resources and species reduced to servitude. They believed themselves the apex of evolution, their 6-limbed forms and telepathic networks proof of their superiority. Every conquered world learned the same lesson. Resistance meant extinction. Earth had learned that lesson the hard way. 23 years ago, the blue marble that humans called home had refused to surrender. The Crexians remembered it well. They kept recordings of the event, played them at military academies as examples of primitive stubbornness. The humans had fought with nuclear weapons, kinetic bombardments, even ramming their ships into Crexian vessels when ammunition ran out. It was almost admirable if it hadn't been so futile. The siege lasted 47 days. When it ended, Earth was a radioactive wasteland, its atmosphere poisoned, its oceans boiling. The Crexians had made sure to broadcast the destruction across their empire. This was what happened to those who defied the natural order. The scattered human colonies in the outer systems went dark soon after. Some surrendered and were absorbed. Others simply vanished, presumably destroyed by radiation storms or starvation. For 2 decades, humanity was nothing more than a cautionary tale told in Crexian schools, a dead species that had chosen pride over survival. Admiral Threx stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, reviewing mining reports from the Vega system. His 4 primary eyes scanned the data, while his secondary eyes monitored the bridge crew. Everything was routine, orderly, perfect. The Empire functioned like clockwork, each piece knowing its place. The first sign something was wrong came from a border patrol near the old EA Earth exclusion zone. A mining station had gone silent. Not destroyed, not damaged, just silent. Threx barely glanced at the report. Equipment failures happened. Pirates occasionally grew bold. A response team would handle it. 3 days later, 5 more stations went dark. A week after that, an entire fleet depot vanished from their sensor networks. Threx finally turned his full attention to the situation. He pulled up the tactical displays, studying the pattern of disappearances. They formed a rough line, moving inward from the galactic rim toward the Empire's core worlds. Whatever was happening, it was methodical, deliberate. He dispatched Scout Commander Velix to investigate. Velix was young but competent, her telepathic abilities among the strongest in the fleet. She took 3 destroyer-class vessels and headed for the last known position of Mining Station 7. The station was still there when they arrived. That was the first surprise. It hung in space, completely intact, no signs of damage or struggle, but every life sign was gone. 3,000 Crexian workers and their support staff had simply vanished. Velix ordered her team to board and investigate. The footage they transmitted back would haunt Crexian Command for years to come. The station's interior was pristine, almost peaceful. Food still sat on tables. Personal effects remained in quarters. The only thing missing was the people. No bodies, no blood, no signs of violence. They had simply ceased to exist. Then they found the message. Burned into the main command console in perfect Crexian script were 3 words. We remember Earth. Velix's blood ran cold. Humans were extinct. This had to be some kind of psychological operation, survivors from a colony perhaps trying to spread fear. She ordered her ships to expand their sensor sweeps, searching for any vessel that might have. The contact appeared on their screens without warning. One moment, empty space. The next, a ship unlike anything in their databases. It was massive, easily twice the size of a Crexian battlecruiser, but its design was impossible. No smooth curves or crystalline structures. This thing was all angles and armor, black metal that seemed to absorb their sensor pings rather than reflect them. Velix opened a communication channel. Standard protocol demanded she offer terms of surrender first, but before she could speak, her console lit up with an incoming transmission, not audio or video but something else. Raw data flooding their systems, bypassing every firewall and security protocol they had. It was a list. Thousands of names scrolling past faster than her eyes could track. Human names, Earth cities, coordinates of destroyed colonies. Every life lost in the Crexian conquest, documented down to the last child. Then the ship spoke, not through their communication systems but directly into their minds, using their own telepathic network against them. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but underneath lay something that made Velix's secondary heart skip. "This is Captain Maria Chen of the Terran battleship Phoenix Rising. You have 60 seconds to evacuate Mining Station 7. We're taking it back." Velix wanted to laugh. One ship against 3 destroyers? Even if humans had somehow survived, they couldn't possibly match Crexian technology. She ordered her vessels to power weapons, to show these ghosts what real power looked like. The Phoenix Rising moved first. It didn't accelerate like a normal ship. One moment it was stationary, the next it was inside their formation. Velix barely had time to scream a warning before the first destroyer imploded. Not exploded, imploded, crushed inward by some invisible force until it was nothing but a ball of compressed metal and flesh. The second destroyer tried to flee, engaging emergency jump drives. The space around it warped, then snapped back like a rubber band, tearing the ship into molecular fragments. Velix's own ship lasted longest, full 8 seconds, before every system shut down simultaneously. Life support, engines, weapons, even the emergency backups went dark. They floated helpless as the Phoenix Rising positioned itself alongside them. The voice returned, still calm, still terrifyingly gentle. "Your empire has 3 standard days to evacuate all forces from former human territories. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification." Power returned to Velix's ship as suddenly as it had vanished. The Phoenix Rising was already gone, not jumped away, just gone, as if it had never existed. Only the wreckage of 2 destroyers proved it had been real. Velix's report sent shockwaves through Crexian High Command. It was impossible. Humans couldn't have survived Earth's destruction. Even if some had, they couldn't have developed technology that surpassed 3 centuries of Crexian advancement. The Empire had monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. How could they have built such a ship without being detected? Admiral Threx assembled a war fleet of 200 vessels and headed for the exclusion zone. Whatever tricks these humans had learned, they couldn't stand against the full might of the Empire. He would crush this Phoenix Rising and hang its wreckage above the Crexian homeworld as a reminder that no one challenged their rule. He found the ship waiting for them at the edge of the dead Earth system. It hung there alone, a dark shadow against the stars. Threx opened communications, intending to offer one chance for surrender. The response was a single image. Earth as it had been before the war. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents teeming with life. Then the image changed. Earth as it was now. Dead, gray, poisoned. The Phoenix Rising began to move, not toward them, but past them, ignoring 200 warships as if they were debris. Threx ordered all vessels to open fire. Plasma beams, antimatter torpedoes, gravity missiles, everything the Crexian Empire had developed in 3 centuries of conquest, lanced through space toward the human ship. The weapons hit something 10 kilometers from the Phoenix Rising and simply stopped. Not deflected, not absorbed, stopped. They hung in space like frozen fireworks, all that destructive energy suspended in a moment of time. Then the Phoenix Rising flexed something, some field or force that rippled through space, and every suspended weapon reversed course. 200 ships firing everything they had, and it all came screaming back at them. The lucky ones died instantly. Others watched their own weapons tear through their hulls in slow motion, temporal distortions making seconds feel like hours. Threx's flagship was among the last to fall. As his bridge burned around him, he saw the Phoenix Rising open its communication channel. Not to him, but to every Crexian world, every station, every ship in the Empire. The human captain appeared on their screens, not the hardened warrior Threx expected, but a middle-aged woman with graying hair and tired eyes. She spoke slowly, clearly, making sure every word was understood. 23 years ago, you destroyed our world. You killed 15 billion people. You broadcast our death across the galaxy as a warning to others. She paused, and for a moment something flickered in those tired eyes. Not anger, not hate. Something worse. Disappointment. We survived. Not on Earth, but in the places you never thought to look. The void between stars. The hearts of asteroids. The shadows of black holes. We learned to live where life shouldn't exist. And while we learned to survive, we also learned something else. The screen changed, showing schematics and formulas that hurt to look at, concepts that Crexian science said were impossible. We learned that your empire, for all its power, never faced real opposition. You conquered peaceful worlds, developing species, civilizations that hadn't yet learned the true nature of warfare. But humans? We've been perfecting war since we learned to walk, and now we've had 23 years to prepare. The transmission ended. The Phoenix Rising vanished again, leaving Threx floating in a dying ship, surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet. 200 vessels, the pride of the Crexian military, reduced to debris by a single human ship. As emergency power flickered on, Threx received reports from across the Empire. The Phoenix Rising had been sighted simultaneously in 17 different systems. Not 17 ships, the same ship, somehow existing in multiple places at once. Each appearance lasted only moments, but in those moments, military installations vanished, supply depots emptied, defensive platforms went dark. The Crexian Empire, which had stood for 300 years, began to realize a terrible truth. They hadn't destroyed humanity. They had transformed it into something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The Reckoning. The Crexian High Council convened an emergency session for the first time in a century. The crystalline chamber deep beneath their homeworld's surface had been built to withstand any assault, its walls lined with psychic dampeners and temporal stabilizers. Here, the 8 beings who controlled the fate of 1,000 worlds gathered to discuss the impossible. High Chancellor Korax stood at the center, his 6 arms moving in agitation as he reviewed the reports. In 3 days since the Phoenix Rising's ultimatum, 47 military installations had gone dark, not destroyed, but simply emptied of all personnel and equipment. Worse, refugee ships had begun appearing at border worlds, carrying Crexian soldiers who claimed they had been transported off their stations moments before they vanished. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were being selective, surgical, almost merciful in their destruction. It was more terrifying than wholesale slaughter would have been. Minister of Science Jadex projected her latest findings into the chamber's center. The Phoenix Rising isn't using conventional physics. Our analysis suggests they've somehow learned to manipulate quantum probability fields. They're not moving through space, they're collapsing probability until they exist wherever they choose to be. That's impossible, Military Commander Drex interrupted. The energy requirements alone would require the power output of a small star, Jadex finished, which is exactly what they're using. The ship isn't just powered by a reactor, it is a reactor. They've turned their entire vessel into a controlled stellar event. The implications hung heavy in the air. The Crexians had always assumed their telepathic abilities and crystalline technology made them superior. But humans had taken a different path, one that made their greatest strengths irrelevant. A communication pulse interrupted the meeting. Every screen in the chamber activated simultaneously, showing Captain Chen once again. But this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of humans, each wearing uniforms marked with symbols the Crexians didn't recognize. High Council of the Crexian Empire, Chen began, her voice carrying the weight of judgment. I am here to deliver terms. Korax's primary eyes flared with indignation. We do not negotiate with... His voice cut off, not interrupted but silenced. Every Crexian in the chamber found themselves unable to speak, their telepathic networks suddenly muted. You will listen, Chen continued. For 3 centuries you've built your empire on the assumption that might makes right, that superior technology justified conquest. We're here to show you where that logic leads. The screens changed, showing a map of the galaxy. Crexian territories glowed red, thousands of systems under their control. Then, one by one, the outer systems began turning blue. Your border worlds are already evacuating. Your supply lines have been cut. Your fleet is in ruins. But we're not here to destroy you. We're here to offer you the same choice you gave us 23 years ago. Surrender or face extinction." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Finally their voices returned, and Korak spoke with forced calm. "You speak of mercy, yet you attack us without provocation." Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the room's atmosphere. Every Krexian suddenly felt it, a pressure in their minds, memories that weren't their own flooding through their telepathic network. They saw Earth burning. They felt the terror of human children as the atmosphere turned to poison. They experienced the last moments of 15 billion lives, all at once, all in perfect, horrifying clarity. When the visions ended, several council members had collapsed. Others wept openly, their bodies shaking with borrowed grief. "That was provocation," Chen said quietly. "But we're not going to respond in kind. You have 48 hours to begin dismantling your military apparatus. Any ship that fires on a human vessel or any of our protected systems will be neutralized. Any world that continues to hold slave populations will be liberated. This is not a negotiation." The transmission ended, leaving the council in chaos. Some demanded immediate military response, others argued for negotiation. But Jadex had noticed something in the data, something that chilled her to her core. She projected her findings for all to see. "The Phoenix Rising isn't their only ship," she said. "Based on quantum signatures, there are at least 12 more vessels using the same technology. They're just not revealing themselves yet." The room erupted. 13 ships that could exist in multiple places at once, powered by controlled stars, crewed by a species that had survived extinction and emerged stronger. The mathematics of war had changed, and not in their favor. Over the next day, reports flooded in from across the Empire. Human ships, not just the Phoenix Rising, but others with names like Remember Tomorrow and Earth's Promise, appeared at slave worlds. They didn't attack. They simply broadcasted a message in every known language. "Anyone who wishes to leave may board the evacuation ships. You will be taken to safe territories and given resources to rebuild." The Krexian Empire had conquered species by breaking their will, but humans were offering something more powerful than fear. They were offering hope. Slave rebellions erupted on 17 worlds simultaneously, not violent uprisings, but quiet exoduses. Entire populations walking away from their captors, boarding human vessels that appeared and vanished like ghosts. The Krexians couldn't stop them. Every attempt to interfere resulted in their weapons failing, their ships losing power, their soldiers finding themselves suddenly transported to their own homeworlds. Admiral Threx, recovered from his defeat and burning for revenge, convinced a faction of the military to attempt one last assault. They would strike at Earth itself, destroy the dead world completely, remove any symbolic value it might hold for the humans. 50 ships, the remnants of the Empire's core fleet, jumped to the Sol system. They found Earth exactly as they had left it, dead, poisoned, worthless. But as they powered weapons to finish what they had started, space around them changed. The Phoenix Rising appeared, but not alone. 12 other human vessels materialized in perfect formation, each one identical in its impossible design. Together, they formed a sphere around the Krexian fleet. Captain Chen's voice echoed through every ship. "You came here to destroy a grave, to desecrate the memory of 15 billion souls. This ends now." What happened next would be debated by military historians for generations. The human ships didn't fire weapons. Instead, they did something to space itself. The Krexian vessels found themselves moving backward through time, not far, just 47 days. The exact length of Earth's final siege. They experienced every moment of Earth's death from the human perspective. They felt the fear, the desperation, the heroism of a species fighting against impossible odds. They experienced parents shielding children from plasma fire, soldiers ramming their ships into Krexian vessels, scientists working until the last second to evacuate whoever they could. When it ended, when time snapped back to the present, the Krexian fleet was broken. Not their ships, but their will. Many commanders simply powered down their weapons and requested permission to leave. Others sent messages of apology, their telepathic emanations filled with genuine remorse. Admiral Threx was among the few who tried to fight. He ordered his flagship to ram the Phoenix Rising, a final act of defiance. The ship accelerated, then stopped, finding itself suddenly orbiting Earth. Not the dead Earth of the present, but Earth as it had been, alive, beautiful, teeming with life. An illusion, Threx knew, but perfect in every detail. He could see cities, detect biosigns, even pick up communication traffic. It was Earth on the day before the Crexian fleet arrived. Chen appeared on his screen one last time. "This is what you destroyed. This is what we remember. And this is why we will never let it happen again." The illusion faded, leaving Threx staring at the dead world below. He understood then what the humans had become. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but guardians. They had taken their loss and transformed it into purpose. The Crexian Empire formally surrendered 18 hours later, not because they had been defeated militarily, though they had, but because the humans had broken something more fundamental, the belief that power justified cruelty, the assumption that survival meant domination. The terms were surprisingly lenient. The Crexians would maintain their homeworld and core systems. They would release all slave populations and provide resources for their resettlement. They would share their medical and agricultural technology with developing species. And they would never, ever expand through military force again. Some Crexians called it mercy. Others called it the cruelest punishment imaginable, forcing them to live with the knowledge of what they had done and what they had become. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Rising one last time before the ship was to be decommissioned. The war was over, if it could even be called a war. Humanity had returned not for revenge, but for justice, not to destroy, but to rebuild. She looked at the tactical display showing the galaxy. Already former slave species were establishing new colonies with human protection. Trade routes were reopening. Civilizations that had hidden in fear for centuries were emerging into the light. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Torres, approached with a question that had haunted them all. "Captain, should we try to restore Earth? With our technology we could—" "No," Chen interrupted gently. "Earth remains as it is, a reminder, a grave, a promise." She turned to address her crew, these humans who had lived in the void, who had learned to bend space and time, who had become something beyond what their ancestors could have imagined. "We don't rebuild Earth because Earth lives in us now. Every world we protect, every species we free, every act of mercy we show to those who showed us none, that's Earth's legacy. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy." The Phoenix Rising powered down its impossible engines for the last time, but its mission continued. Humanity had returned from extinction not as conquerors, but as teachers. They had shown the galaxy that true strength wasn't in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to. The Crexian Empire had fallen in days, but not to weapons or technology. It had fallen to an idea, a simple truth that humans had learned in their darkest hour. Those who have lost everything have nothing left to lose, but also understand the value of everything that remains. The stars continued to turn, indifferent to the drama below. But for the first time in centuries, they shone on a galaxy learning to hope again. And in the void between those stars, human ships continued their vigil, ensuring that never again would might alone make right. Earth was dead, but humanity lived. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.